Everybody loves watching the Minions and Gru movies. But have you ever stopped to realize that there are several unanswered mysteries in Illumination's animations? And since the company has never answered many of them, fans have created several incredible theories that help us make sense of a lot of things. Lucy traveled to the past. Most fans don't even know this, but Lucy showed up in the first Minions movie in a very subtle way. When the Minions go into the mall looking for Bob, they end up in the Hall of Mirrors. And when they come out, we can see that there are some mannequins wearing dresses in the area. And guess what? They look exactly like Lucy, Gru's wife. And this usually only happens when the person the mannequin looks like is a fashion icon and someone really important. So we can deduce that during the time the movie takes place, Lucy was someone pretty famous. And you might be thinking, it's fine if there's a mannequin that just happens to be a perfect copy of Gru's wife. The problem is that this happened in 1968, when Gru himself was still just a little boy, under 10 years old. So how could it be possible that roughly 40 years later, she and Gru exchanged vows at the altar and started a family, even having a little boy, Gru Jr.? This strongly raises the suspicion that the AVL has a time machine hidden somewhere, and that Lucy used it to go to the past to try and recover the crown of England. And in the meantime, she accidentally became a celebrity and became a mannequin model. Of course, before going back to the present, she managed to go to young Gru's house, recover the crown, and return it in the present day to Queen Elizabeth before the old lady passed away. If all of this is true, we can say that it wasn't exactly love at first sight for the two of them, but rather love at second sight, since the first time they locked eyes was actually in 1968, and they didn't get married until 2010. Drew was always around. What if I told you that Drew has actually always been around in all the Despicable Me movies? Would you believe it? Think about it with us. Drew was raised by his dad, who was a legendary supervillain, but was considered a disappointment. Meanwhile, Gru, raised by his mom, became the greatest villain in the world, even going as far as stealing the moon. Therefore, it's impossible that the Minion Master's long-haired brother, who was deep inside the villain underworld and desperately seeking his father's approval, didn't know who Gru was. Because of this, it makes perfect sense to say that he watched his twin brother as a case study, trying to learn how to be a successful villain from a distance. And on top of that, Drew inherited an incalculable fortune and a gigantic underground lair full of high-tech vehicles and gadgets. He could very well use a space satellite to see what his twin brother's day-to-day life was like. Another huge piece of proof of what we're talking about is the fact that when their dad died, the butler Fritz was sent almost immediately to Gru's house to tell him the truth. He didn't have to investigate, hire detectives, or hack into databases. He landed the ship right in Gru's backyard. They already had his address, his routine, and the complete file on his entire life. And the perfect time to do this was exactly when Gru and Lucy got fired from the AVL, so the agency wouldn't discover the legacy of crimes of the Minion boss's family. And Gru was also no longer a villain and wouldn't see Drew as competition. If all this gets confirmed by Illumination, I gotta say, I tip my hat to Drew's intelligence.
Mr. Ramsbottom has amnesia. Now let's talk about something that, if you're a fan of Gru and the Minions, you definitely noticed as soon as you saw the scene after the fight between Mini Gru and his minions against the Vicious Six. In this scene, we can see a 40-year younger version of Mr. Ramsbottom, the top boss of the Anti-Villain League, confronting the Vicious Six before the final fight, and later we see him taking away the little rats that the group of evildoers turned into inside a cage. In the same way, at Wild Knuckles' fake funeral, he briefly talks to Gru, telling him it's better to live a trouble-free life in a threatening tone. Remembering that all this happened in the year 1976, many years ago. The weird part is that in 2010, when Despicable Me 2 takes place, we see that he and Gru treat each other as if they had never seen one another before in their lives. Which raises the strong possibility that Gru probably forgot because he was still a kid. But in the case of Mr. Ramsbottom, who makes a living fighting and capturing supervillains, it's highly likely that he suffers from a severe case of chronic amnesia. After all, let's be honest, Gru's weird face, even as a kid, is something that's hard to forget.
If you're enjoying the video, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss any new videos.
Dr. Nefario and the Principal. Anyone who watched Despicable Me 4 and had a keen eye, or watched videos about details and Easter eggs, noticed something pretty weird in the principal's office at the villain school when Gru, his son, the Minions, and Poppy went to grab the school mascot. When Lucy's husband manages to get into the office and starts looking for a button to locate the badger, he quickly pans past some picture frames, and we can see that in one of them, there's a very loving photo of Dr. Nefario and the principal. However, up until now, this photo or anything related to it hasn't been explained by the directors or the rest of the movie's crew, which ends up leaving room for us fans to come up with a bunch of theories. The first of which would be that the principal and Dr. Nefario are nothing more, nothing less than boyfriend and girlfriend. Yeah, despite asking Gru's mom to dance at the Minion boss's wedding party, it could be that the heart and mind behind all of our favorite villains' sinister machines is already taken. Another possibility would be that the two characters aren't actually dating, but are instead relatives. And honestly, I have a bit of a hard time telling the difference in age between super old people, and to me, they could all be pretty close in age. So thinking like this, we could say they could perfectly be brother and sister, don't you think? Just look at how happy the principal is in the photo. That would definitely be a good guess, but there's still one last possibility. What if the principal is actually Dr. Nefario's mom? She could have easily had a baby when she was young, which is why they are both elderly today. That actually makes sense, but the mystery remains in the air. Drop down in the comments what you think they might be to each other so we can get to know you.
Why is Gru's mom so evil? Now let's talk about who is probably the least liked character in the entire franchise, Gru's mom. Marlena is definitely the most selfish and cold person in the movies, even more so than all the villains we've seen before her. Want proof? There's another case in the movies of a character who is also the parent of a supervillain, and we can see that he cares about him and treats him way better than Marlena treats Gru. We're talking about one of the villains from the first movie, Mr. Perkins, the manager of the Bank of Evil. When Gru and Wild Knuckles go to the bank, back when Mr. Perkins was still a teller at the evil financial institution, he shows a picture of his son and speaks of him with pride and affection. However, in that same movie, we see a younger version of Marlena talking to Gru with total contempt, always focusing on her personal commitments and her boyfriends, like her yoga instructor. In other words, the woman couldn't care less about her son ever since she divorced her husband. It's fine that she has villain blood running through her veins, but as Mr. Perkins showed, even villains like being with their kids, except for Marlena, which without a doubt makes her the greatest villain in the world. Miss Hattie goes unpunished. Almost tied with Marlena in levels of cruelty is another character who, so far, has only appeared in one of the movies, the first one to be exact. We're talking about Miss Hattie, the not-so-friendly headmistress of the orphanage where Margot, Edith, and Agnes lived before they were adopted by Gru. For starters, we can say that the orphanage basically operates as a clandestine child labor exploitation ring. She forces the kids, like Margot, Edith, and Agnes, to spend their days on the streets selling boxes of cookies to hit daily fundraising quotas. On top of that, the evil Miss Hattie created something called the Box of Shame, which is her method of discipline, psychological torture. It works like this. The girls who don't hit their sales quotas or who show any kind of insubordination get locked in a dark cardboard box in the corner of her office, which is used like solitary confinement. And to make matters worse, on top of all that, she treats adoption like a mere transfer of merchandise. Hattie hands the three girls over to Gru without running any real background check, being easily fooled by a facade and a fake accent. Anyway,
she is a truly evil being. However, after the first movie ended, nobody knows what happened to her or her orphanage. We're left totally in the dark, and we can't imagine that to this day she is still forcing kids to sell cookies or locking them in cardboard boxes as a form of discipline. Our guess is that an anonymous tip, probably made by the Minions, led the police to the place for an investigation, and after that, the place was shut down, and the kids went to better places than that one. And we hope that she is behind bars serving time for being so mean to the poor orphans of that place.
We'll stop here, but you can still keep watching more incredible videos. Just click on either of these two appearing for you. Until next time.